During my childhood days, I was sexually abused as a
At what
young
age?
at five
5?
5 years old. Um, and that time it was a very trusted like family friend of ours.
Okay.
It was a teenage boy, and I never really knew that was a criminal or a crime or something, because I remember vividly, like, I would only watch cartoons and then that happened.
Okay, tell us something fun about yourself.
I don't know. I think I'm boring. I'm boring.
So what is the craziest thing you've done in your life?
I think moving out of the country by myself.
So you left Philippines?
Yes, I left Philippines to work in America, which is because I grew up very shy, and you wouldn't think of me as venturing out at another country.
Okay.
So that's something that is very unlikely of Jay to do. So that's the
So you left at 19. You went to America
after
And-
college. So
after college.
Yes.
And then you got married
yes,
and you moved back.
yes, to Philippines.
Okay, so that's the background. And you are part of Creatives
Yes,
in Manila.
Yep, I have two
together
kids.
with your husband. 2 kids? How old are they?
They are 12, turning 13 this June, and then another one is Josiah, which is 15 years old. So I have almost teens, all teenagers now.
In today's podcast, I just wanted us to have this space where we're going to have this conversation, talk about our stories. I want to talk about the things that, sometimes each one of us, we struggle with.
Yeah.
Certain things that maybe we find shameful to talk about, things that we've overcome, things that we have achieved in our life. And this is what My Side of the Story podcast is all about. So let's go right into it. Are you ready?
Okay.
Right. I've known you briefly, and you've shared with me your story, and I believe there are many out there who would really resonate with your childhood story. So share with us growing up. What was it like? What happened to you? And let's go there.
Okay. All right. So I grew up in the Philippines. So I grew up in a family unit that is very complicated. But the complication actually I didn't knew about until I was in college. But during my childhood days, I was sexually abused as a
At what
young
age?
at
5?
5 years old. And that time it was a very trusted like family friend of ours.
Okay.
It was a teenage boy, and I never really knew that was a criminal or a crime or something, because I remember vividly, like, I would only watch cartoons and then that happened. Like, this person introduced me to something that is unimaginable. So what turns out like an innocent play turned out to be something horrendous. And so growing up, that continued up until I was a teenager, to a point where, thank God, I realized that there's something wrong already, that that person is doing something to me that is not good. And so came to a point where I screamed, I asked for help,
So it was ongoing for years?
ongoing for years,
Okay.
until I was in 12, maybe 13. And at that point, when I was 12 and 13, I realized that this is wrong. And so that was the beginning where that boy stopped pursuing me. And so during that time, I was really confused. I knew it was wrong, but then because of the cycle, I began to find my identity in that cycle of abuse. And so I started questioning, was that my fault, or is that something normal that people do, get into that type of abusive relationship. But then everything stopped. because I started, screaming whenever he tried to, do something. And so, but then the thing about it is that it created in a sense, like this confusion in me at a very young age. So I started feeling ashamed, dirty, not good enough.
This was when you were a teenager?
Yes, it was already in my teenage year because it stopped when I was 12, 13. And so because of that, I didn't tell anyone because I was ashamed, because I didn't know if it was my fault or was it normal. So all I could think of is confusion.
Okay.
And I felt like no one would really understand.
Was it hard in those years
Yes.
to allow somebody to come close to you again?
Yes.
Even friendships?
Yes. I remember when I was 5 or maybe 4, I remember being a very outgoing kid. Like, I remember my auntie would always call me outside because I was out playing, and I'm very friendly. But then because of that abuse, looking back, I realized that it created a behavior in me that wasn't really me. So I was outgoing and I became very introvert. I play by myself. I remember my mom catching me inside a cabinet playing with my Barbies by myself. And that's totally not me. Before, I would be outgoing, playing with friends. So I started seeing like the difference in me. I couldn't speak, I couldn't talk to people. I remember in high school, in the hallway, I would always like walk but look down. I can't even look at people. So that's how like crippling, like my shyness was. But I thought,
How did it make you feel about yourself?
I believe I was, in a sense, damaged, damaged goods, like I'm not enough. Like if I open my mouth, I might say something that they might know that I came from that, like past. Shame. I felt very shameful. And so I kind of like decided to just be silent. Outside, I was smiling, you know, um, floating through life. But then inside, I was like crying in pain, and I didn't know how to talk to people. That was before I became a Christian, actually. So I didn't have community to talk to. My mom is a single mom. She raised us up. So she would go to Manila and, provide for us. And I was left with my grandma. So I didn't have anyone to talk to about it.
So, what was the turning point for you?
Yeah, I think the turning point was, I feel like, in a sense, God had to make me realize this because in college, I was self-destructing already.
In what ways?
I developed an eating disorder, and that in itself is secretive disorder. Like
Yeah,
I
and
would.
in those days, it was shameful to even
Yes.
talk about it
Yeah.
because it's not like how the media talks about it
Yeah.
now. Back then, it was hideous, right?
Yes.
You don't talk about it. You don't
Yep.
tell anybody about it. How bad you feel about yourself.
Yes.
So that was that. In that, I would think it's that 90s era.
Yes, yes. I remember like whenever, like in our cafeteria, whenever I would eat, I would find comfort in eating. So I try to find things that would comfort me to, in a sense, compensate the pain that I was feeling. So I would eat, and then I would have that urge to like, throw everything up. So I developed a bulimia disorder. And I remember there's a scar right here that actually, in a sense, reminded me who I was before. So I developed that because I felt like somehow in my life I have control, which is my weight at that time. Like everything else around me feels out of control, but my weight I can control. So if I eat something, I can just control it, throw it up, then my weight will be at the same, And so I try to find those areas where I can find, control. Develop eating disorder. I started smoking when I was in college, heavy smoking, which is also a secret because my mom didn't know about it.
So where did you hide yourself to
Actually, it
smoke?
was in school.
Okay.
So I was part of the theater club, and all my friends there would smoke heavily. So I would also smoke. And then I would like go to my friend's dorm and shower so that all that smell would go away. So all of those things, I started developing very low self-esteem.
How about relationships?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
gender. Yeah, yeah. I was in a all girls school, so in a sense that actually I found myself confused with my gender because I was surrounded with all girls, and then some of the girls actually were like taking interest on me, so I felt like the pressure of like, oh, maybe you know um being in a relationship with another, in a sense, woman who took interest on me would I would feel whole, and validated. So I tried that
And
type of
again, in the
relationship.
90s, this was like a taboo subject.
Yes, yes. So I kept it also with my parents, or my mom, actually. My mom doesn't know anything about it. And then it came to a point where I don't know anymore where I'm headed. Whenever I have the urge to like, like bulimia, I threw up, I find myself crying. Like I feel like, oh, I know in my heart that this is wrong, but then this is the only way I could feel that I am in control of my life. But there's this dichotomy, like a tug of war.
Mm.
It feels good, but I know it's wrong. That it's eating me up. Because if you are struggling with eating disorder, I found this out during counseling, is that your heartbeat stops whenever you're in that process, and it actually hurts your throat
Mhm.
and also your heart. And so I knew that it was wrong, but it felt good.
So, what was the journey like discovering the power in you to overcome some of these things? Like,
Yeah.
what was it like?
Yeah, I think the beginning of my healing was definitely when I started coming to church. When I was 19, I migrated to United States, and I became a part of a little church community, predominantly Latinos, and we were the only Filipinos at that time. But I felt at home for the very first time. And so that was the beginning of my, well, still long time like journey of healing. That's when I found, people that really talk to me and then really know things about me. And I started opening up. Like the hard shell, my heart started, like opening up to people. And so because of that, I started sharing my story, and I realized that through telling my story, telling my struggles is part of the healing itself. So I started taking the layers of shame. I remember I talked to one of our leaders during that time that I struggled with eating disorder. So I was crying so much because I was so ashamed to tell someone.
Mm.
Like even my boyfriend at that time, Nolan, my husband now, my ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
Didn't even know about it. Like we were already in a sense dating, but he never knew that I struggled with it. So he was wondering why every time we go to a restaurant, I would excuse myself and go to the restroom. And that's because of that. So it was
Okay.
really crippling me. And so when I finally told, I remember Mario, one of our leaders there at the church, that I struggle with this. That was the first time I told anybody.
Mm.
And I felt like a weight lifted on my shoulder,
Mm.
you know? And I cried and cried for a long time. And of course, the disorder didn't go away
Yeah.
automatically. But knowing that someone knew like made me become aware now. Okay, so and so knows that I'm struggling. Maybe I should just tell them that I'm struggling instead of, keeping it to myself. So over time with that, and then I started doing counseling with a professional counselor. And I realized, from doing it every single day, like throwing up every single meal, started with one meal, started with just once a week until I never did it ever again. So
So
yeah.
knowing God and the community
Yes,
was a
that was the big part.
turning point for you. You probably had to rewrite a lot of the beliefs about yourself.
Yes.
What were some of those beliefs that you had to take on from the Word of God that is new to replace all
Yeah.
those beliefs that you have
Yeah.
you have lived with for so many years? What were some of those new beliefs?
So I was never enough. I think that's one belief. I was damaged, and I
What did you
can.
replace it with?
So damage, I replaced it with I'm beautifully and wonderfully made by God. And so all of those little things, like he sees me, like God sees me. He's what is that word? Um, Not Elohim. I forgot the other word, but a God who sees. So I realized, wow, there's a God who sees me, even though no one sees. No one knows what I'm going through, but there's one person who knows that, yeah.
I'm so amazed by your story. And I know just a few of my friends, or recently a new friend that I met, went through similar childhood struggles, right, of sexual abuse. And it really kind of shook their life as they were growing up. So, what would be your advice to someone listening to this show, to this podcast? How can they overcome their trauma, right? All of us have different childhood traumas,
Yeah.
but with sexual abuse, I think it's tough to overcome. So, what would be your advice to someone out there listening? What are the specific steps that they can do
Yeah.
to overcome it?
Yeah. I think the biggest part definitely is share someone. Share
Share
to
with someone.
someone. Yeah. I think that's the biggest part.
So, how do they overcome that fear of even opening their mouth
Yes, yeah,
to tell
yeah,
somebody?
yeah. I think for me, my fear was everybody will know, right? Like I feel like that's a shame. But telling one person, like for me, oh, it shouldn't hurt that bad. At least this one, just one person, until all of a sudden you can even share it to the world, that it becomes your testimony. So that one person, our leader at our church, I shared it, and then all of a sudden I started sharing it with Nolan. Nolan's not even the first one I shared it with.
Was he upset?
He was very shocked.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest one. And also, like looking at my story and how God has brought me this far, I'm still, trying to work on my self-esteem and all that. Because
I'm sure it's a constant struggle even
yes,
to
yeah,
this
till
day.
today, yes. Like even though I know I'm healed, I feel like because of the trauma, in a sense, that pain shaped my behavior and how I react to certain things. So I still had to like really force myself to in a sense like look at it from God's perspective. And I always say this to myself. I'm a very visual person, that there's a difference between recycling and upcycling. So I feel like God not just recycled my trauma, but he upcycled it. Because recycling, you throw it, you break down all the pieces together and make something completely different.
Yep.
But then for me, I felt like God upcycled me. I'm still that same person. I'm still that same Jay, that went through that trauma. But he didn't break all of those pieces. It was still a scar up until today. but it became a sacred, scar in a sense. He upcycled me in a way where I can now become a useful tool for others, maybe.
And you're now a mom
Yes.
to two beautiful kids.
Yes.
So how has that experience kind of formed who you are as a parent?
Yes. You know what? Looking back, I would say that I'm grateful that God brought me this far, because I feel like now that I am a mom, I have a daughter too, especially my daughter.
Yeah.
Like I can begin to look at her from a different lens. In a sense, I am her, maybe like a big sister that would shape her in a way where I know that I don't want her to go through that same position that I was in back then. So all that trauma in my past, now I can begin to see if my little girl is also struggling with insecurity, with her weight, or with how she looks, or anything like that. So it actually became a blessing. Yeah.
These days on social media, it's so common that we read about trauma, about childhood abuse, about sexual abuse, different things on social media. But the key thing, hearing from your story, is this: a lot of people might feel like they're a victim of whatever happened to them in the past. Like, that's why I'm who I am today, broken, destroyed, useless, nobody, because of my past.
So good,
right?
yeah.
But I think you didn't allow yourself to stay there. It was a hard 20 years, I believe, right? But you chose to rewrite that story, and you choose to be a hero out of it to help other people. I think that is a beautiful story that I really wanted the listeners to be able to draw out of your sharing. Thank you for sharing that, because what I got out of this is, a lot of things can happen to us in life, right? Failures, disappointment, people betray us. But if we allow those things to define who we are, and we just live our lives thinking that we have no other power, and life is just going to be like that because of my past, it's hard to actually live out our truest potential.
It's so good.
Right? Today you are a mom, you are leading Creatives Manila, you are happily married, you have two beautiful kids, and you are actually sharing your story to help other people. That's the beauty of us being humans, right? And just hearing your story, I just feel you are a hero in many, many ways. And I believe your story will impact a lot of lives out there. I've only just begun, and we only talk about your past. I want to talk about your future. So I'm going to leave that to the next episode, where we're going to talk about purpose and calling and meaning in life. So thank you for tuning in. If you like this episode, please like, share, subscribe, share with your friend, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Esther.
See you. What is a balut?
A balut is a duck egg, and once you open it up, there is a little baby duck that you're about to swallow.
If you could eat balut, what's wrong with durian?
I know, but it has that bitter taste after.
That's the whole point. We like it bitter and sweet.